People have been referencing sentient reptilian entities, sometimes humanoid, sometimes not, going back to some of the earliest written works and legends known to man. In more modern times, according to a survey done by the firm Public Policy Polling, approximately 4% of Americans queried claimed that they believed lizard people are influencing world politics, with an additional 7% on the fence about this question. So, how did the idea of lizard people ruling the world start? Well, to begin with, for those unfamiliar with our lizard overlords, while there are a variety of versions of this conspiracy theory, the general notion is that a few different types of reptilian humanoids walk among us. Chief among these creatures are a type speculated to come from the Draco constellation, because apparently the lizard people knew their little corner of the galaxy would look vaguely like a serpent from Earth when connecting the dots during a certain part of Earth's history, and so went ahead and spent millions of years evolving appropriately on their home planet to match. The Draconians are apparently tall, winged, reptilian humanoids who not only secretly rule over humans, but more overtly rule over other types of lizard people as well. As for those others, the second most prominent group widely held among adherents to this conspiracy are the shape-shifting human-reptilian hybrids. Naturally, thanks to the fact that the lizard people are secretly working to control humanity, many former and current prominent world leaders, such as the now allegedly deceased Queen Elizabeth II, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump, along with celebrities like Angelina Jolie, the allegedly deceased Betty White, Simon Whistler, and Katy Perry, are all known to be shape-shifting reptoids. What? This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Now, if you've tried to build a website, it can be a bit like assembling flatback furniture without the instructions. It can be frustrating, time-consuming, and let's be honest, quite rage-inducing, but fear not, because Squarespace is here to save the day. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place, all on your own terms. So let me tell you about some of my favorite features. First off, there's Squarespace Blueprint AI. It's like having your very own website designer. You can get professionally curated layouts and styling options tailored to your brand, optimized for every device. Plus, with integrated SEO tools, you'll get discovered fast, showing up more often to more people. And then there's the Fluid Engine. Imagine drag and drop, but on a whole new level. Customize every design detail with reimagined technology for both desktop and mobile. It's intuitive, it's powerful, and it's perfect for unlocking unbreakable creativity. So if you're ready to take your online presence to the next level, head over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/brainfood and save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain using the code BRAINFOOD. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring, and now back to today's video. As to why said reptoids wish to rule the world, there are a variety of reasons given, with the most prominent two being that they are here for our gold, and alternatively, that they feed on negative energy from humans, particularly given off when we're afraid, angry, or just generally anxious. Thus, they wish to create an Orwellian world government system in order to more easily manipulate our collective emotions for their own sustenance. This now brings us to who actually first came up with the modern idea of these reptilian overlords in the first place. Well, as noted, sentient reptilians of some form or another have seemingly been around in human legend for as long as we've been humaning. One of the earliest and most influential references of lizard people in more modern times can be found in Robert E. Howard's 1929 story, The Shadow Kingdom, published in the pulp magazine Weird Tales. Not coincidentally, these beings are shockingly similar to the modern perception of lizard people. In a nutshell, the story involves ancient, shape-shifting reptilian humanoids with elaborate underground abodes who work in the shadows to rule humanity, including via infiltrating various groups and using mind control to influence world politics. This and subsequent works by Howard would go on to popularize some version of these lizard people, including in works by a close friend of his, H.P. Lovecraft. The concept caught on from here and has shown no signs of stopping in science fiction since. Noteworthy here, for reasons we'll get to in a bit, is one individual, Mystic Correspondence School founder Maurice Doreal, who would seemingly be inspired by Howard's lizard people when creating many written works for his followers, most notably the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. Except in Doreal's case, he would use these science fiction characters to create a supposed real history of Earth that incorporates reptoids as factual beings. Because, sure, why not? Another notable incident that helped spread the idea of lizard people occurred in 1934 and 1935 when one G. Warren Schufelt was looking for gold in California. To aid in his endeavor, Shufelt invented a device that he claimed used radio X-rays to see deep into the Earth and was apparently able to be used to find precious metals like gold as well. Of course, his device didn't actually use X-rays, but rather used a common dowsing pendulum, as described in a January 29, 1934 edition of the Los Angeles Times, quoting here, Shufelt's radio device consists chiefly of a cylindrical glass case inside of which a plummet attached to a copper wire held by the engineer sways continually, pointing, he asserts, toward minerals or tunnels below the surface of the ground, and then revolves when over mineral or swings in prolongation of the tunnel when above the excavation. Using the device, the Times piece reveals a rather astounding discovery made by Shufelt. Busy Los Angeles, although little realizing it in the hustle and bustle of modern existence, stands above a lost city of catacombs filled with incalculable treasure and imperishable records of a race of humans further advanced intellectually and scientifically than even the highest type of present-day peoples. Shufelt himself goes on of this discovery, I knew I was over a pattern of tunnels, and I had mapped out the course of the tunnels, the position of large rooms scattered along the tunnel route, as well as the position of deposits of gold, but I couldn't understand the meaning of it. Shufelt made a breakthrough, however, when he came across a Hopi Native American who went by the name of Little Chief Greenleaf, as well as L. Macklin. Shufelt claims that Greenleaf told him about 5,000 years ago in Hopi history. It speaks of lizard people who built vast underground cities in the region, recording their own history on gold tablets. Hearing this story, Shufelt connected the dots and believed he had found one of these cities, and could prove it because within the chambers he found, to quote, gold tablets with perfect corners, sides, and ends, scientific proof of the gold's existence. Of course, given that he was using nothing more than a dowsing pendulum, it's not really clear how he could have detected anything, let alone gold tablets hundreds of feet below the Earth's surface. And we're not really sure how claiming you found gold is scientific proof of finding gold, but he was happy to take investors' money to pursue the dig. On that note, with the story being published in newspapers across the country, Shufelt was able to both garner city support for the project in exchange for 50% of any gold found, as well as get sufficient money from investors to start excavating. Unfortunately for his investors, as often happens when you dig deep holes, the result is eventually encountering water, with the project ultimately stopping at a depth of about 350 feet because of this complication. While Shufelt had thus successfully accomplished drilling a well, sadly he did not manage to find any buried treasure. As to what happened to him after, he doesn't appear to have used his radio X-ray device on any other projects and more or less disappeared from history, other than it being recorded that he died in California in 1957. As to the Hopi legends that he used to garner so much support for his project, it should be noted here that while this story is often used as support of the existence of the lizard people, beyond the fact that no such tunnels were ever found, it is explicitly noted in accounts from Shufelt at the time that these were humans who simply used the lizard as their symbol. And indeed, while there is no known Hopi legend about literal lizard people, it was common for the Hopi to have clans that used animal names, such as a bear clan, a spider clan, and, most pertinent to the topic at hand, yes, there really was a lizard clan. As the rest of the story concerning underground cities and technologically advanced peoples, there is no known reference to this in any surviving Hopi legends. Of course, given their history was passed down orally, much was lost before their stories started to be written down. That said, further raising questions about Shufelt's story is that there is no record of a Chief Greenleaf or L. Macklin in any surviving Hopi birth and death record. Of course, while extensive, these lists are not comprehensive, so it's possible Greenleaf really did exist. But as with the supposed Hopi legend of these advanced lizard people, all we have to go on is Shufelt's word. Whether Shufelt was simply a con artist or he legitimately believed vast tunnels filled with gold exist under the city of Los Angeles isn't clear. Either way, his claims are occasionally used as proof of ancient lizard people inhabiting the Earth. Fast forwarding to 1976, and we have the 12th Planet and subsequent similar works by Zecharia Sitchin, where he purports that beings known as the Anunnaki from the planet Nibiru came to Earth 500,000 years ago in order to acquire, to quote here, monoatomic gold, which they can use for traveling through dimensions, among other things. Thankfully for us humans who were used as slaves by the Anunnaki, this group ended up hightailing it off Earth because of a great flood that covered the planet. When the Anunnaki came back, they apparently were involved in the building of a variety of ancient structures, such as the pyramids. Noteworthy here is that Sitchin's Anunnaki weren't necessarily reptilian, but, as with Shufelt's story, would later be folded into the lizard people conspiracy theory anyway. And this finally brings us to the man of the hour, and arguably the greatest driving force behind the modern lizard people conspiracy theory, as well as perhaps the most successful professional conspiracy theorist of all time, David Vaughan Icke. Icke was a former popular sportscaster for the BBC and prominent Green Party member. His life changed, however, around 1990 when he started feeling some invisible presence which physically led him to a book called Mind to Mind, written by a psychic healer by the name of Betty Shine. Soon enough, he sought out Shine to see if she could shed a little light on how he might heal his arthritis and what the deal was with the strange presence that he was encountering. After a few visits, Shine allegedly told him on March the 29th, 1990, that Icke was placed on Earth to work as the instrument of the spirit world, and they would be contacting him to use him as a conduit to help humanity. Shortly after this, messages flooded in. In order to spare the Green Party the controversy he knew would follow when he revealed to the world what the spirit realm was telling him, in 1991, Icke decided to leave said political party. He then held a press conference alongside his wife, Linda Atherton, and his girlfriend, Deborah Shaw. Okay. Announcing to the world that he was, in fact, the son of a godhead, with godhead described by Icke as infinite mind. Among other things, he would make a variety of bold predictions, such as that the world would experience a cataclysmic event in 1997, which would see such things as New Zealand disappearing into the sea. This would all culminate in the entire world ceasing to exist. He further revealed that all of this was told to him by spirit voices who were using him as a conduit to communicate to the people of Earth. While it expected controversy from these revelations, apparently the reality of people not only not believing him, but actually mocking him quite openly across the country was too much at first for Icke. He stated, "One of my very greatest fears as a child was being ridiculed in public. And there it was coming true. As a television presenter, I'd been respected. People come up to you in the street and shake your hand and talk to you in a respectful way. And suddenly, overnight, this was transformed into Icke's a nutter. I couldn't walk down any street in Britain without being laughed at. It was a nightmare. My children were devastated because their dad was a figure of ridicule." At one point shortly after his infamous announcement to the world, many dozens of teens even went so far as to gather in front of his house, continually chanting, "We want the Messiah, give us a sign, David." Despite it all, Icke soldiered on anyway, writing several astoundingly well-reviewed books such as The Truth Shall Set You Free, The Truth Vibrations, The Children of the Matrix, The Biggest Secret, The Book That Will Change the World, Alice in Wonderland and the World Trade Center, and Infinite Love is the Only Truth, among many others, with the entire catalogue having apparently sold a couple of 100,000 copies to date. On the side, Icke also sells merchandise, operates a surprisingly popular conspiracy theory website, and most lucratively of all, frequently gives public talks in front of crowds of thousands, in one instance in Australia, apparently grossing a whopping £83,000 or $102,000 in ticket sales. At a talk in Melbourne. I'm in the wrong business! As for lizard people, they are at the centre of Icke's vast conspiracy theory, which pretty much forges elements from just about every prominent conspiracy theory into one master theory to rule them all. Noteworthy is that much of the modern mythos surrounding the lizard people Icke has channeled from the spirit realm bears shocking resemblance to the sci-fi stories that kicked off the whole lizard people idea in the first place, as well as seemingly borrowing from the aforementioned The Emerald Tablets, as well as Stitchin's work, among others. Not completely unoriginal, Icke has come up with a number of his own elements to add to the narrative, including claiming the lizard people use the moon, which apparently is a spacecraft and interdimensional portal, to project a holographic reality to aid in controlling humans. In his own words, "We are living in a dream world within a dream world, a matrix within a virtual reality universe, and it is being broadcast from the moon. Unless people force themselves to become fully conscious, their minds are the moon's minds." I wonder why everyone was calling you a nutter, David. I wonder, David. He later claimed that actually the rings of Saturn were where these signals originated, with the moon itself merely amplifying and projecting them onto Earth. Which, I'm not going to lie, shape-shifting interdimensional lizard aliens invading Earth using mind control, virtual reality, moon-sized spacecraft, and many other awesome technologies to take over the world. I mean, I'd watch that movie. Can we get someone to sum up Icke's books into one coherent trilogy and add some awesome characters and maybe get the Wachowskis to direct it, please? Of course, in Icke's version of things, it's not Keanu Reeves who'd save the world, but of course, it's himself. I mean, he's the son of a godhead after all, and he'll reveal the truth to the world and get everyone to love one another. Icke states, "David and rule is the bottom line of all dictatorships. Arab is turned against Jew, black against white, right against left. Unplugging from the matrix means refusing to recognize these illusory fault lines. We are all one. I refuse to see a Jew as different from an Arab and vice versa. They are both expressions of the one and need to be observed and treated the same, none more or less important than the other. I refuse to see black people in terms that I would not see white, nor to see the left as I would not see the right. How could it be any different, except when we believe the illusion of division is real? If we do that the Matrix has us. He sums up in a speech in 2012, "If we want a world of love and peace, we have to be loving and peaceful with everyone, even people we don't like." In the end, that is, according to the spirit realm, who is using Ike to communicate with us, the only way to defeat the lizard people. Starve them of our anxieties, fears, and angers, and give them only the positive energy of love. So to sum up, lizard people in some form or another have been around seemingly as long as humans have been coming up with stories, with the modern incarnation mostly seeming to have been popularized by author Robert E. Howard, spreading through fiction from there, and ultimately adapted, among other works, by others, with this all culminating in the most prominent version of the lizard people story created by the son of a godhead, Britain's own David Icke. We're not proud. For full details, see the many books which the lizard people freely allow him to publish, despite that the books reveal their ultra-secret plan in incredible detail, and even out some of the most prominent members. And now for a bonus fact. Speaking of conspiracy theories, have you ever wondered why Area 51 is thought to house alien bodies and technologies? Well, want to know more? First, it's important to realize what Area 51 actually is. For all intents and purposes, and according to every government document ever released, Area 51 is a so-called secret military base where they test experimental pieces of military hardware. For example, experimental jets such as the SR-71 Blackbird and the Lockheed U-2 Dragon Lady were tested at the Area 51 base, the latter of which was actually the first piece of hardware publicly known to have been constructed and tested there. The site Area 51 was built on was supposedly first chosen due to the incredibly smooth lands found on nearby lake beds, coupled with the area's natural inaccessibility. Both of these features made it perfect for testing aircraft like the Lockheed U-2, which required a large area of flat land from which it could take off and land, while at the same time required being in an area of enemies that the US couldn't at the time easily lay their peepers on. Understandably, for a location that deals in incredibly sensitive military information that costs billions to produce, the government has a real hard-on for keeping it secret. Over the years, this hasn't exactly panned out. For example, on April the 19th, 1974, astronauts taking part in a Skylab mission accidentally photographed the airfield at Groom Lake being an alternative name for Area 51. The funny part being that this photo wasn't taken by the ship the astronauts were on. It was taken by one of the astronauts when he pointed his camera out of the window. This is despite the fact that said astronaut was under specific instructions not to take pictures of that particular area of Earth, and it's not currently known whether or not this event was a mistake made by the astronaut or a conscious decision on his behalf. In any event, the first known picture of the site to eke its way into the public domain was taken in 1968 during a US geological survey. However, as far back as 1955, papers have made passing reference to the facility, referring to it as a super-secret Atomic Energy Commission installation. They obviously sucked at naming things back then. Though the government has always maintained a rather tight-lipped stance on the base, slip-ups have been made in the past. For example, in one-time top-secret Area 51 document, since it's been open to the public, the installation is referred to by that name by then CIA Director Richard Helms in a secret memo discussing air reconnaissance of North Vietnam in 1967. However, for the most part, the government has always either remained coy or simply ignored the site altogether when referring to it in official documentation. As for what it's like to work at Area 51, unlike pop culture would have you believe, the people who works there aren't forbidden from ever speaking to their family or held in giant underground bunkers a la Independence Day. Just ask James Noyce, who worked in the secret facility for decades, though James has been sworn to secrecy, as is to be expected when you work on highly experimental classified government projects. He's free to talk about his experiences there. For example, James noted that he was always paid in cash, whereas others were paid in checks from companies that they didn't work for. Even more interesting, when a plane from Area 51 crashed once, James was tasked with confiscating the cameras of a nearby family, who were quickly rewarded with a fat stack of cash for their silence. So why do we think aliens are stored there? After all, while the testimonials of people like James and trusted government and military officials with decades of experience do include a number of telling facts about Area 51, he and other people who've spoken out about it have never once alluded to any sort of alien activity ever occurring there. But of course, the government would say that. Governments lie all the time about stuff like this. So what about Roswell? Surely that's when all of the rumors started, right? Well, actually not so much. Though today some conspiracy theorists believe that the craft that crashed at Roswell was of alien origin and that it was or is now being stored in Area 51. When the incident first took place, Area 51 wasn't mentioned in any documentation from that time. Not to mention the fact that the two sites are hundreds of miles apart. If the wreckage was of alien origin and it was moved, it's likely the government would have moved it somewhere closer. Though the Roswell Daily Record from July 6, 1947 did feature the words flying saucer on its front page, secret government facilities, and in particular Area 51, were not mentioned. It turns out it would be another 20 years before Area 51 was even referred to in an official sense. People back then had no idea it even existed, meaning that they'd have been unable to suggest that the wreckage could have been taken there, even if they did believe it was of extraterrestrial origin. In fact, it would appear that the stories about aliens being held in Area 51 are a rather recent invention. You see, it wasn't until 1989 when one Robert Lazar appeared on a Las Vegas TV station under the guise of a government scientist and stated that Area 51 was just full of alien technology that interest in Area 51 and aliens really started to gain momentum. We should mention that almost as soon as Lazar appeared on TV, every single one of his credentials was pulled to pieces. No school he claimed to attend had ever heard of him, and the science behind his so-called theories was soundly debunked. Nevertheless, it caught on from there, and Hollywood picked up on it and spread the idea further, perhaps most famously in the 1996 blockbuster Independence Day. And so, just to sum it all up, Roswell, UFOs, aliens, little green men, and Area 51 were in no way linked as far as popular public opinion was concerned until exactly one man with no credible credentials went on TV and claimed that that was the case. And people have run with it ever since, because that's what people do. It's pretty good news that the lizards are going to take over soon, because we can't be trusted to govern ourselves.